Welcome to the Business Spotlight. Today, I'm joined by Griff Crouch. He's the Managing Director of GPC Clear Solutions, and they are a company that specializes in industrial wastewater treatment. Griff has over 2 decades of experience and has seen a lot of market turbulence and evolving environmental regulations. Some real game-changing moments in that journey. So I'm really excited to have you, Griff. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Right, let's get straight to it. So tell me about your business journey. How did you start, and how has the journey been up to this point?
Okay, so we started trading in June 2003, so it's just over 21 years ago now. I used to be employed by a company that sold chemicals into the wastewater treatment industry, and I took voluntary redundancy from that in May 2003 and set up GPC, very, very quickly after that, and became a reseller for them. And also, we are still doing that and other chemicals alongside that, complementary products. So over those years, they very kindly gave me the customers that I had when I worked for them, so that I had something, I could hit the ground running, as it were. I had some customers to start with, which was quite crucial for me then. So I had an income that we could work on, so that was good. And we've just grown from there. We've gained ISO registration within the first few years. We're a family-run business, so both my wife, my daughter, and my son are all involved in the business, as well as others now. So we supply mainly the food industry and the aggregate industry for water treatment, and sort of dried up a bit now, sorry. So the journey in itself has been quite turbulent, hitting cash flow issues, which I think every business will have. Winning customers, losing customers is part of everyday life, as it were. But as long as the growth is an incline rather than a decline, we sort of keep pushing forward. Whatever hits us, we keep pushing forward, looking for new projects, looking for new products that we can supply, increasing our portfolio, so increasing our customer depth and width, really.
Oh, brilliant. That's really insightful, Griff. Thank you for sharing there. So what's been your biggest lesson that you've learned in business?
I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is cash is king, and that maintaining cash flow is absolutely critical. One of the best things I think we ever did was to employ a bookkeeper, because what I found, certainly in the early days, is as the business is growing, so the business that you created to serve you begins to consume you. So that you're writing and doing the VAT return at 1 o'clock in the morning, trying to get the accounts thing, and it's just no good to anyone. So if you can put that to a part-time person that you employ just to keep your accounts going, then that's an incredible release, and it allows you to focus on the business and growing it rather than just trying to keep up with all the paperwork. So I found that really helpful. That was one of the biggest lessons was helping, was getting a bookkeeper really to help with that, take all that away from me. And that's been brilliant. So we've had her for many years now, and that's been an absolute critical part, I would suggest, to our growth, really, because it just allows you to focus on what you need to.
Wow, a really, really well and powerful point there. Thanks, Griff. So may I ask a bit about kind of your strategy on how to maintain consistent cash flow or just a healthy cash flow in business. So what works well for you?
I think it's having defined boundaries in terms of customers and not allowing them to get more credit than you can deal with, and it's chasing customers for payment and having the right people to be able to do that. So it's keeping an eye on that cash flow. It's keeping an eye on customers that aren't paying on time and contacting them to make sure everything's okay and encouraging them to pay more quickly. So that's it's that sort of strategy really is maintaining that cash flow aspect and making sure that customers are paying their due date.
Yeah, could not agree with you more. It's very important to stay on top of the data accounts within the business. Griff, what would you say makes you stand out from others in your industry, from typical competitors?
I think it's our attention to detail. It's the service we can offer, and it's our reputation that has grown over the years for honesty. Not everyone has quite the same morals that we do in terms of product selection and product quality. So I think all those things go in hand. We have our own laboratory. I've always done the lab work, if you like, for product selection. We never guess, and we always go forward with recommendations based on work that we've done previously rather than guessing. So it's those aspects really. So it's attention to detail and honesty of trading.
That's a fantastic way to do business, around honesty and that attention to detail. So we talked a little bit about you acquiring a business, which is quite a big step. What would you say were the biggest lessons you learned from that process? And did it give you any advantages using acquisition as a growth strategy?
It's been an interesting process. We acquired the new business about 3 years ago. It was a very established business, more than 25 years old, and the owner at that time wanted to retire. So we just took steps step by step, just to see how we would go with it, and we managed to get a loan to acquire the business. It's a slightly different business to what we have now, or quite a lot of difference. We supply chemicals. This receives water in for sampling, for testing of Legionella and E. coli and all this sort of thing. So it broadens the scope of what we're able to supply. So it's a very, very good bolt-on. In terms of lessons learned, I think one of the things that if we were to do this again is that we made some changes quite quickly when we first acquired the business. And I think a lot of it was heart over head. We gave some quite big salary increases, which in turn caused quite a big cash flow issue. So I think if we were to do it again, we would sit back and hold back until we got a really full understanding of what was going on in the business and looking at the cash flow within that business. So I think we jumped in very, very quickly, and we made some changes perhaps too quickly. The repercussions of that actually can be have quite longevity to it. Yeah.
And I can imagine that is quite impactful, but a great lesson there, and thanks for sharing that for others considering, acquiring other businesses to expand. You mentioned when we spoke last a little bit around a supplier that had a fire, and it was quite a situation to deal with. So any advice you would give other business owners when they prepare for unexpected supply chain disruptions, and how did you manage that?
Well, we were very fortunate, and I got an email on a Sunday evening to say that one of the products that we use, that we supply, a lot, to a lot of our customers was no longer available with immediate effect because of as you correctly say, a manufacturer's fire, and it was unknown how long the supply would not be available. So we, in our lab, we concocted a blend of products that were available to match the performance of the one that was no longer available, or at least for a time period, which were actually almost for a year. So we were able to roll out our new blend very, very quickly within the next day or two, which took away all the anxiety, if you like, of not being able to supply it because we were. So I think it's a question of if anyone else has that scenario given to them, very, very quickly or unexpectedly, it's to look at what you have in your hand. If it's that phrase, isn't it? If life gives you lemons, make lemonade. So it's okay. So how can we make lemonade? What do you have in your hand? What facilities, what other supply do you have that you can adapt quickly or to replace, really? So it's to look outside the box, even, really. How can you get around this? How can you replace that, even if it's not quite the same? Will it do a reasonable job? And that's what I think what we had. It was slightly more costly, but it did a very similar job against, and it was against what the alternatives would be to use other products or cheaper, but you would have to use 2 or 3 times the amount, so it would even be more costly. So what we made wasn't quite the same, but and 1 or 2 customers it didn't fit, but they were in the vast minority. So the vast majority of customers, what we were able to do, it did serve their purpose, and they were very, very grateful for that. So it's a question of, say, thinking outside the box, and what do you have in your hand? What can you adapt?
Brilliant agility that you had at the time. So such a powerful insights there. Thank you, Griff. You mentioned that you are a family business, and I work with a lot of owners that are family within the business. What is that like? How do you manage the relationships? Because it can be quite challenging, because it's close to home, but it's business, and it's kind of keeping the balance between the two. So what would you say works well for you as a family in terms of, making decisions and communication and all of that?
Yeah, you're right. So running a family business is really great because, my wife and both my children are, who are adults now, of course, and both produce grandchildren. It has its challenges. You're absolutely right. I can't always speak how I'd feel, or if I do, it sort of perhaps ruins Christmas Day a little bit. You've got to be careful. But we're a family, and there are ups and downs in any relationship, isn't there? We can talk about the whole workforce being a family, and sometimes things have to be addressed, and you can't shy away from addressing issues or things that have to be said. Okay, there may be ways that you can say them so it minimizes any problems later on with relationships, but these have to be made up. Things have to be said and addressed. And if someone does something wrong, whatever relationship, or a mistake is made, whatever their relationship is to you, it has to be addressed, and we go forward from there. But also I'm heartened by the fact that both my son and my daughter have really taken a grasp of the business, or both businesses now, and I've made them directors of the business that we acquired, and they've grasped it with both hands, and I'm delighted to see both their business acumen. Really, they're doing really great. My daughter's specifically more attracted to the HR role. She's very much a people person, and the lab that we acquired has over 20 staff, so she's really got stuck in with them. And my son is much more strategic, so with Clear Solutions, I have him here, and we discuss strategy a lot, and I'm looking forward to the future, how we do things. So for me, it's both of them are a fantastic support, and my wife, we have no thought of retirement really. I think my wife has a bit more, but I haven't. But my wife looks after all the bills and makes sure that they all get paid on time. So for me, knowing all these things are going on, it means I can focus on new projects and all this sort of thing, and also having both my son and my daughter involved. I know that that the businesses have a future. That there's no intention of the businesses being sold off for me to retire. There was never any intention for that. It was, I have a relatively young team, and I want them to have jobs as long as they want them. And both my son and my daughter gives me that sort of look, gives the business longevity, because they will be taking over from me. Yeah.
I love that, Griff. Such a great reminder that even team is family, right? You don't have to be related to have that sense of family within your business, and it's so wonderful to hear. So, what's been the most difficult leadership decision you've had to make, and how did it impact your business?
So last year I had to make a decision on reducing the workforce at GPC in order to improve the cash flow. We had lost a big chunk of business, not through our own fault, that we were supplying a contractor who ran a site, and they lost the contract, so they lost the business, and therefore so did we. And it was a very large hole to fill, and I was reluctant to take any immediate action, but after probably a year, I could see that we were creating a deficit in our accounts, and I had to take action. And unfortunately, I had to make 2 members of staff redundant. It didn't sit well with me, but you have to look at the business as a whole. And unfortunately, you have to make tough decisions really for the sake of the business and for the future of the business. So I had to let 2 people go late last year, middle of last year. And so it means now and those guys were on the road, so I've had to now go back on the road and seeing 4:30 in the morning sometimes, but that's the way it is, and from we just have to just go forward from there. So that was a tough time, really. Yeah.
Such a difficult thing to deal with, when you have to let people go. So thank you for sharing, Griff. I'm going to finish off with some rapid fire questions. What is the key to success for you?
Is never give up, keep going, keep pressing forward, new ideas, new strategy, keeping an eye on that cash flow.
Excellent advice. What inspires you?
What inspires me is that you never stop learning. There's always more that you can do. And there's always new things that are sort of coming on the market. And so, for instance, now, I've got a new project of what we're looking at water recycling. So it's really, what inspires me is really that we can always do more, we can always do better. So let's see how we can achieve that? How can we do that? How can we serve our customers well, and how can we serve them better?
Absolutely. And you also mentioned to me, about water and the future of water. and by the sounds of it, also very inspiring for you around kind of where we're going with recycling of water.
Well, you know, water is a precious resource, isn't it? And, you know, in the morning we get up and, you know, we turn our taps on and we have a good wash or a shower. And there's, you know, we expect good, clean, potable drinking water to be at our will and command, really. But a lot of people in this world don't have that. So we use it, you know, we can use a precious resource very casually and carelessly. And in industry, the the cost of using that water is going to be ever increasing, and the cost of discharge is going to be ever increasing. So, as a business, you know, what can we do? First of all, in terms of our industrial customers, to reduce that cost, and that could be trying to make the water even cleaner before discharge, or let's see what we can do to recycle it. And you know, I have, you know, desires that we can also produce good clean water and sanitation for those that don't have it. And those are sort of charitable type projects that I want to get involved with.
I think it's absolutely so crucial that that we start looking after the water resources in the world. So yeah, absolutely, just love that. Best book you've ever read, or best advice you ever received that you can pass along, or both, if you have it.
So one of the better business books I have read, it's quite an old book. It's called Built to Last.
Yes.
And then there's also Good to Great as well. I think there's a third one, which I can't remember what it's called, but I have it at home. And I think it's sort of looking at why actually businesses fail. So these, they're not an easy read, but they're actually very interesting. The way businesses and big businesses really, how they have become so. You know, so what it does is, I think it broadens your imagination, and you know, because sometimes we can put limits on ourselves, and if we put limits on ourselves, then the business is going to be limited. You know, it will be, because you're not going to go beyond what you can imagine. And reading things like Good to Great and Built to Last can inspire you, and it can help you take those limits off, really, so that you know you can build a business to as big as it can possibly go, rather than limiting your thoughts, and therefore limiting, you know, how fast you're going to grow. And I think it's books like that that will inspire you, really, so that it will help you take those limits off, because I think we are sometimes our own worst enemy. And you know, oh, I can't do that. Well, why can't you do that? You know, I can't go there, or why not? Because you can. You just have to get up a bit earlier. You can, you know, you can do it. So you just don't limit your thoughts. You've got to be able to think, well, okay, it's not, I can't, it's how can I achieve that? So it's more of a can-do attitude. And so reading books like that, and Good to Great and Built to Last, can be helpful to do that.
Absolutely agree. Two really great books that you're sharing there. So if our listeners haven't read it yet, I think it's definitely ones to add to the reading list. Really great perspective. Thanks so much, Griff. Anything that you'd like to share about the business? Maybe something that's happening, or just some general information you'd like to give?
Well, as what's exciting for me now, you know, is well, it's interesting because I'm sort of about 68 and a half now, and most of a lot of my friends are either, well, to be honest, dead or retired, you know. So, but I have no intention of retiring. I feel very inspired. So we've just set up GPC Environmental, which is going to take on projects that will broaden our scope and go, as we said earlier, going to more into this recycling aspect. And We were called into a customer last week actually, and they want to recycle their water as much as possible, up to 100% of their water, and they use up to 1,000 cubic meters a day. So it's a huge project, and so I'm very, very excited about that. And 1,000 cubic meters a day, if we can save that, or a lot of it, then that's a good deed done. I think it will save them a huge amount of money. It's going to save the environment, a lot of water, and it's a fantastic project for us to get our teeth into. It's a great start to the new side of the business, as it were. And I'm sure that whilst we do this, we're going to learn a lot on the way as well. So I'm very excited about that. So my future sort of vision really is looking at clean water now as we do. Can we do that better? Can we do that more efficiently? And then can we then take that on a step further by recycling it? So I'm just very excited about that, the future for that. And also looking at ways that we can supply products, equipment for people that don't have a good clean water supply and sanitation to give them some dignity in their lives and some comfort that we take for granted. So they're the things on my heart that I want to try and push forward.
That's so inspiring. Thanks, Griff. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Business Spotlight, and thank you for taking the time out and sharing such great knowledge and experience with those that are watching and listening. Thanks.
Well, thank you for the invitation, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.